G'day, sports fans. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sports by Fry podcast. Sitting down once again with JLo after a fair stint off the airwaves. It's felt weird not recording a podcast, but I'm back. Triumphant return to discuss week one of the AFL Finals and look ahead to the second weekend. Pretty interesting matchups, if you ask me. Two, I think, clear favourites, but wouldn't rule out a Brisbane or a Fremantle victory. So Jake and I talk through what we think is going to happen this weekend. A couple of other footy things, talking about West Coast's current list. Did a bit of basketball stuff as well. This is the first podcast that I've addressed the Donovan Mitchell trade as well. So as a Cavaliers fan, pretty happy, pretty stoked to have Donovan Mitchell on our roster. The next couple of years will be very interesting to see what pieces they put around it, but definitely stock up in Cleveland if you ask me. The NFL season is just around the corner as well. So JLo and I have completed our NFL fantasy draft. So I think each week we're just going to give a little bit of a recap of the week before and preview what lineup changes we may be making. Not a ton of NFL coverage on the weekly JLo sit down, but I will be talking plenty of American football and the other pods and bits and pieces as well. So another huge podcast coming at ya. Let's dive right into it. It feels like it has been forever since we've sat down and talked a bit of sport. It has been a fairly lengthy period of time. How you doing, JLo, on the 7th of September?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good. Gearing up for a grand final for myself. Gearing up for a Dockers semi-final. Yeah, it's a good time of year. It's a good time of year to be in the footy sphere. Put that on.
There
a
was
shirt.
about 72 hours where I was like, you know what? That might be my peak sporting 72 hours, because we had the Dockers massive win. I had the Friday morning news of Cleveland trading for Donovan Mitchell. And then obviously the Sharkies got through to their first grand final ever. So it's hard to top. Look, I'm not going to waste any time. I've been itching to get a useless Sports by Fry stat out of my system. So you ready? Here we go.
Here we go.
How many Grand Slam titles do you reckon Serena Williams has won? We don't talk much tennis on this podcast, but obviously she's bowed out now of her illustrious tennis career. How many do you reckon
15,
she got?
16?
Keep going.
17?
Keep going.
18?
23.
Shit.
Yeah.
Fucking.
She has the most.
GOAT.
Yeah, I think she is, honestly. She had the most. Rafa's at 22 after he won the Australian Open earlier this year. Does that sound right? Against Nick?
Mate, I'm not
Oh, no, that was Wimbledon. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so Serena's got 23. Rafa and good old Steffi Graf have 22 each. And then Novak, who might beat them all, is still stuck on 21. And then the Fed Express on 20. So, yeah, quick shout out to the GOAT, Serena Williams, on her tennis career.
Thanks, Serena.
It's NFL season, mate.
Yeah, that's exciting. We had our fantasy draft the other day. I was pretty happy with how it came out. So, yeah, I'm looking for that. Starts on Saturday morning for us, eh?
Friday our time, because they've got Thursday night footy over in the States.
It's already adjusted. Got you.
Yeah, I think we got the Bills Rams straight off the bat, which will be an interesting game. But
yeah,
we might introduce just straight off the bat the weekly fantasy check-in, because again, there's probably not tons of Sportsby fans who listen to a lot of NFL fantasy stuff, but yeah, you and I are definitely in and amongst it. So you said you like the layout of the team. How are you shaping up heading into week one with what's your team's name?
Alshon and Jeffrey.
That's right.
I need to change that. But you know what? It's been that way so long. Just like Quist Blorkin, who was a throwaway at the time, but now I might have to just keep it going.
Create your own history.
Both weed related actually, which is weird. But yeah, the Alshon and Jeffrey boys are going well. Had pick 2, auto picked, which I was a bit disappointed in, but got Christian McCaffrey, and you know, from there it was fine. Pretty happy getting Leonard Fournette. A bit wide receiver heavy. Got Matt Stafford, I think, back in the QB slot. So we'll just have to see how it goes. Didn't all go to plan, but that's what happens when you got a good league. So a lot of heady drafters. So shout out to our league, whatever it's called. But
I think it's just the
how are you
Sportsby league.
feeling? Yeah,
yeah, good. There was there wasn't too many times you sniped me, but I was kind of hoping that DK Metcalf would filter through, but alas, you pounced on him. So I was eyeballing him for one of my wide receiver spots. But the rest of my team, I'm actually really happy with. I took Justin Jefferson, the Vikings bloke, number one. I reckon he'll be like offensive player of the year this year. I'm predicting big things, but the one that I really wanted to get was Saquon Barkley. There's a lot of, not a lot of buzz, but I guess like around the NFL circles, they say if a bloke does his ACL, it's not the next season you want to get him, it's the one after when he kind of makes his comeback. And Saquon looked like a superstar when he was healthy. So I'm kind of banking on him hitting form. Could end up with egg on my face. And much like you, I'm a little bit wide receiver heavy, but got Russ Wilson as my QB. He's now in Denver, so I'm predicting big things for him. Got Kyle Pitts at the tight end. Got Indianapolis's wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr. So, yeah, I like the list. Stashed DeAndre Hopkins as well, who's suspended for 6 games, but we'll have to wait and see how we go week 1. I'm hoping I can get a dub. Got the Dynamite Dons, but once again, traditionally our league is pretty strong, so you never know.
Yeah, some years that bloke, whoever that is, finishes really high. Some years he's absolute mud. So
Yeah,
you could be getting anything coming your way, mate.
he does have Jalen Hurts at quarterback that I'm a little bit worried about, but yeah, looking through the rest of his roster, should be 1-0 this time next week.
Okay.
Regardless of what happens NFL fantasy wise, I think I can just ride off the high of this next topic probably until the NBA season starts, because the Cleveland Cavaliers are now the proud owners of a 3-time All-Star in the shape and form of Donovan Mitchell. Let me quickly, before I get your opinion, read through what Utah got for Rudy Gobert and Donnie Mitchell. So they got 6 unprotected first-round picks. They got 1 that's top 5 protected from Minnesota in 2029 as well. So technically 7. 3 pick swaps, Colin Sexton, Laurie Markkinen, Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, who they flipped for Talon Horton-Tucker, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Bolmaro, Ochai Abaji, who was our 14th overall pick this year, and Kessler, can't remember his name, Wayno Kessler, who was the 22nd pick this year as well. So effectively, like, pretty much 10 firsts and Sexton, Markkinen, Beasley, Talon Horton-Tucker, Vanderbilt. You know, like they got some pieces for those 2 dogs. Who do you think, you had to say one team won the trade, which way would you lean, do you reckon?
This is just the Cavs.
Just the Donny acquisition.
It all depends on the outcomes down the line, doesn't it? Because
yeah, of course.
My big thing is I'm a bit worried that Donny might not work. You know, I'm a bit worried that he's going to be sort of a bit too ball dominant. He's going to take the ball out of Darius's hands. He might stifle Evan Mobley's growth. Whereas I think if you just hung fat and stuck with who you had, I think the growth would have happened. The improvement would have just happened. Now you guys have sort of forced. You've limited that growth option potentially. Could really work. I always liked Donnie Mitchell until this season just gone and how he sort of operated with Rudy Gobert. So now I'm a bit worried if he's bringing the ball up half the time, it's out of Darius's hands, potentially isn't going into Mobley. I'm a bit worried, but it does give you a great backcourt punt, 1-2 punch, and it also is going to allow you guys to stagger your lineups quite nicely. But I think, to be honest, I'd probably say the Jazz just because they're safe. They probably enter the what's his name, Wembanyama sweepstakes now, and yeah. Whereas you guys, it could really work, but it's there's some things that have to go right, I think, for you guys.
It's a bit of a gamble, right? Like, I think you worded it best by saying, you know what, Donovan Mitchell might just be a glorified Colin Sexton. And if he is, and you're paying him twice as much and he's chewing up twice as many possessions, that could be an issue. But I think I'm a bit worried potentially if he's bad on defense or doesn't give effort on defense, our guards are just probably going to be a bit of a sieve and not slow down the likes of I don't know. Steph Curry is the first one that comes to mind, and no one can really stop
Yeah, you've
him. But
got to deal with Kyrie Irving a fair bit.
yeah,
Um,
Drew
trying to think
Holiday
of
as well.
Zach
Like if we want to
Zach
get to the
Levine.
pointy end,
Yeah, Levine's floating around. Yeah.
yep. I think it was a gamble. Effectively, they swapped out Laurie Markkinen for Donnie Mitchell and our picks because obviously Sexton didn't play a big chunk of last year, and this Ochai Abaji bloke wasn't on the roster either. So I guess that's maybe just me trying to be a glass half full outlook on it. But like you said, it gives us a pretty budding backcourt. We got Mobley and Jared Allen now. So there's like 4 really good dudes to build the next 3 years around. And who knows, they might even push for a top 4 spot this year now. The bench leaves a little bit to be desired. You know, you got Karis LeVert, Jetty Osman, Isaac Okoro. They'll probably rotate through the wing spot. Kevin Love is a punch off the bench. Ricky Rubio when he's healthy. It's a good team. But yeah, I guess just the ceiling, like you said, may have been stunted for the development for some of these dudes if Mitchell's chewing up 20 shots a night. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they're doing. And I did initially love the deal. I wasn't too worried about the picks or the players that we gave up. But from a fit standpoint, that'll be obviously the big question mark. But yeah, I got high hopes. I think it's a type of trade that, you know, maybe they should have waited 2 seasons to make, but there's not that many dudes that are queuing up to go and play for Cleveland. So I can see why Kobe Altman pulled the trigger, and we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully they can nudge 50 plus wins and make a noise in the playoffs because Donnie's shown that he can, you know, he can score when he gets to the postseason. So yeah, I'm optimistic.
Also get scored on.
Yeah, this is true. Speaking of scored on, let's transition into talking about our last division that we have not previewed, Southwest Division. I reckon we're going to go in reverse standings order from the Southwest. So scored on links a lot to the Houston Rockets, who I think, despite going 20-62, might actually be worse next season coming up. I know that they got a couple of pieces, you could say, but just on the surface, they didn't do a ton this offseason other than give up Christian Wood. They added a few pieces and some other youngsters, but I don't think they got shitloads better. The big one will obviously be to see how much that Jabari Smith contributes straight off the bat. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they were right amongst it with the Spurs, who we'll talk about a bit later, and Utah in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. So what's your opinion on Houston and their offseason?
Oh, I tend to agree with you, mate. I think I guess they're just hoping for growth from Jalen, hoping that Kevin Porter Jr. can keep his head right. I like that they brought back Jay Sean Tate. I thought that was good.
Yeah, he's underrated, eh?
Yeah, I like Alpi Şengün, but that is about it. Obviously, yeah, like you said, Jabari Smith is the real the piece that they're hoping they're going to get a lot from, and he could go well and sort of push them up the standings a bit. I would be guessing that they would be hoping that they don't move up. There's no point at this. It's just for nothing. You want to be in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes. So if they can just get some improvement from Jalen, bit of improvement from Şengün, get minutes into Smith, and I guess kind of get Kevin Porter playing all right, then that's a win for them, I would say.
Yeah, KPJ is an interesting one. I think you're right. They're probably not going to be in a rush to get shitloads better. That's why I wouldn't be shocked if Eric Gordon was a dude that got moved at some point during the season before the deadline. Yeah. Everyone's been saying that for the last 3 years, but he's technically in the last year of his deal. He's got 19 mil this year and then 20 plus next year, but that's non-guaranteed. So I don't know.
Yeah.
A team like Charlotte, if they're on the fringe of the top 6 and they need another scoring punch or another contender gets someone injured, maybe they go out and snaffle him. But yeah, there's not a lot to love about Houston's makeup. I'll be very intrigued to see how, what's his name? Steven Silas, that's the coach name.
Is he still there? Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I'll be very intrigued to see how he like builds this young roster, and if they're shit again, if he's just like, nah, they've got to make a change, or if Kevin Porter Jr. blows up. So there are some intriguing storylines, but yeah, I don't expect them to nudge 25 wins. So
yep, with you on that one, mate.
Same could be
Move
said
along.
with the San Antonio Spurs, who were
Ugh.
somewhat surprising 34 and 48 last year, but you can probably attribute 7 to 8 of those wings to DeJounte Murray, who's obviously no longer there. I got no convincing take around the Spurs. I think they're going to be average. I don't know who on their roster that I like, to be honest. I mean, they've got pieces, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we're staring down the barrel of the worst roster in the league right now.
Definitely the worst roster in the league for my mind. Anyone I like? Only bloke I like is Keldon Johnson. I've probably said it before.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about him.
He's one of the best rebounding sort of. Is he a guard? He's kind of in the middle, but rebounding guard forward combos that I've seen is unreal. You've got Greg Popovich. That's about all they've got going for him. But I think they want to just get improvement into Keldon. Who's the other one I was looking at? Oh, bounce back year for Zach Collins. That's, welcome back, I guess, eventually.
Yeah.
Devin Vassell, I think, is the other guy they want to get minutes into and enter the Wembanyama sweepstakes. I think there's going to be a lot of teams lining up. So
I think Jeremy Sohan, the bloke that they drafted, a lot of people are high on, high energy type of cat. But yeah, I mean, Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, Blake Wesley. Yeah, sorry, boys. This is a fucking young team, though. So, if I don't think Pop will see it through to the pointy end when they turn the corner, but if they learn a lot from these couple of years where they get banged up and then a couple of stars and decent role players emerge, and they can get someone like, we talk a lot about Victor Wembanyama, but Scoot Henderson for the G League Ignite is probably the second best player in that draft class, and any other year would go number one. So there's a pretty deep draft this year. So if they're right at the pointy end of it and they can get a franchise altering type of dude, then, they only need to find the auxiliary pieces. But yeah, I'm not going to be watching a lot of Spurs basketball this year.
I'm right there with you, mate. In fact, I wouldn't watch them on a good year. So they're going to be
neither would I, actually.
Unequivocal worst watch in the NBA.
Is there anyone you draft for your fantasy side out of this team? Because someone's got to get some stats.
Keldon Johnson, the rebounds.
Pirtle, do you go down that route? Hope he has 5 blocks a game.
No, any good, maybe if there's a good 3-point shooter. Dougie McBuckets will probably score a lot.
Yeah, maybe. I won't be watching much San Antonio Spurs, but I tell you what, I'll be tuning into a fair chunk of New Orleans Pelicans basketball. They could be, I gave Toronto heavy raps when we did their off-season recap / preview. New Orleans might be the one in the West who vaults up and pushes for a top 4 spot. Let's not rule it out. I mean, they pushed the Suns to 6 last year, and it felt like they belonged. They didn't look out of place in the playoffs, which, considering they were 10 games under 500, says something. I'm very, very intrigued. Obviously, Zion's health is a huge caveat over the entire group, but the pecking order between Zion, Ingram, McCollum, and how they, if they could all three coexist, will be interesting to watch. But yeah, I like this Pels team. I wouldn't be shocked if I don't think they're going to win 50 games, but I wouldn't be surprised if they flipped. They went 46 and 36. So what are your Pels thoughts?
Probably the guy that jumps out at me is Herb Jones. I mean, they're going to get a lot of improvement from him, and he's one of the more special defensive talents I've seen in a long time, sort of Kawhi Leonard-esque, honestly, if he develops right. So very excited about them. They're going to be a great watch. Obviously, Zion is instant league pass top 10. And I think CJ is a very steady contributor. Brandon Ingram he sort of broke out in the playoffs, I thought.
Yeah.
And then they've got good pieces like JV. They've got Larry Nance. They've got the other bloke I was just looking at. Jacko Hayes is now entering his 4th year, I think.
Might even be 5th, honestly.
I came in with Zion, so 4th year. And,
true.
The other one, Devontae Graham, is a great little player. And then you've got the spark plug Alvarado. So yeah, they're going to be very watchable. Don't love their commentary team. That's my one thing. The guy has a good voice, their lead commentator, but they're a little bit one-eyed from mine. So yeah, I think these guys are going to be good. No way they make top 4, I would say, because the West is good. The West is bloody good.
Yeah, the West
You got
is
the
very
reigning
good.
champs. You've got the Suns. You've got the Nuggets. You've got Luka. You've
You got
got
the Clippers.
they're going to be right up
You
there.
got the
But you
Grizzlies.
never know what the Lakers are going to do. You never know. So yeah, I couldn't see them jumping over those guys. They might jump over the next two teams that we talk about though. But yeah, they're going to be a fun watch. That's for bloody sure.
It's going to be cool to see because obviously the two teams we're about to talk about and the Pels, all three of them in the same division means they'll probably play, 4 times a year?
4 each, yeah.
Yeah. So you get a little bit of Zion versus Jar versus Luca and then the other matchups. That'll be very intriguing.
Definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could see them finishing top 4. It's more likely that they finish in the top 6, but
Yeah.
the teams that you mentioned, like when they're better. Oh shit, yeah, they're better too. Oh crap, yeah, they're probably bat deeper. So
Yeah.
there's only so many spots in that top 4. In fact, I can confirm there's 4 of them. So we'll have to wait and see. Dallas Mavericks, 52-30. They went last year. I was hype when they added Christian Wood. I thought that was going to be a really big thing, but I'm a little bit less optimistic on them going on another Western Conference Finals run now that they've lost Jalen Brunson. I still think they'll be fine, and I reckon they'll probably be around a similar mark, win 50-ish games. But yeah, I do wonder what Dinwiddie and Tim Hardaway can bring if they can kind of bridge that gap. And I've just never really loved their bench either. Losing Boban Marjanovic isn't going to be a drastic difference, but he was a dude out there and he was contributing. So I don't love how deep they bat. So I don't know if I've put Dallas in like actual championship contention, but I didn't do that last year and then they went on a run. I know they added JaVale McGee, so he may turn out to be a decent dude and contributor, but yeah, I'm a little bit out on Dallas compared to earlier in the offseason.
Yeah, I would just say I'm about the same as I was last year on them. I would push back against they don't bat deep. Like they're going to have Kleber, they're going to have Batans, they're going to have Bullock, they're going to have Dinwiddie, they're going to have obviously Luka, Finney Smith will start. Josh Green's a solid contributor. They've got Dwight Powell, Christian Wood will start. They've got Frankie Ntilikina.
Yeah.
They're not shallow, I wouldn't say. They're not all-star players or even star players coming off the bench, but they do have like players who play a role and I think play a role well. So you just need some good players around Luka. And I think
I get that's
kind of
what I was
it.
just starting to think,
But at the same time, I think losing Jalen Brunson hurts. So I think they're about where they were last season for mine.
Luka being so heliocentric means, like you said, I guess you don't need to find an all-star to go alongside him. It would be nice. But yeah, if what's his name? I was just staring at his name. Reggie Bullock and Davis Bertans can step in and hit some threes. Christian Wood does the rim running and provides a bit of hustle inside, and Tim Hardaway is getting close to 20 and Dinwiddie's giving you 15. Probably a top 6 team in the West. Shit.
Maybe. Yeah, we're running out of spots.
Yeah. If Dallas is in and taking one of those spots and New Orleans is in, taking one of those spots, it's going to be tough for Memphis to squeeze in. But after going 56-26 last year, I don't know how they're going to be much worse. Pretty much their only off-season move was really swapping Danny Green for Anthony Melton. And obviously they got a lot of young dudes and they're going to keep growing. The big thing that hangs over this whole franchise, I guess, is the health of Jaren Jackson Jr. because he's shown at times, he's had moments where he's looked like the best player on the court, including when Jar's been there, but that's been very few and far between. And obviously he's missed a shitload of games in the last 2 to 3 seasons. So if he can stay healthy and contribute, I'll be really high on this Memphis team. But yeah, I expect them to probably achieve similar, which, we haven't really given away a lot with this Pelicans, Dallas, Memphis trio. But like you said, the West is pretty loaded and it's going to be really tough to try and find out which teams force their way up the standings. And I guess injuries will obviously play a factor as well. But could you see Memphis pushing for a top 4 spot over the likes of Dallas and New Orleans? Do you reckon they've got the most chance?
Yeah.
Or highest chance, I should say? Yeah.
I would say so. I think they did well enough with Jar off the court to make me believe that they've got the cuddle. I think they also lost Kyle Anderson, right?
Oh yeah, he's at Minnesota. Yep.
Interestingly, I was going to say if they hadn't lost Kyle Anderson, they would have 4 pick number 30s in
Oh.
their team, except one of them's a second round, but that's all right.
Still
Yeah,
counts.
Desmond Bain, pick 30. Santi Aldama, pick 30 this year. So anyway, would have been interesting. I do like they played a lot of the season without Dylan Brooks. Tyus Jones is probably the best backup point guard in the league. They're going to get another year into Jar. D'Anthony Melton's a good backup. But I don't know about his fit. He's probably the third point guard. I know he's listed as a shooting.
Melton got traded to the Sixers.
Oh, so who'd they get from Melton?
Danny Green. But I don't know if they bought him out or what the deal is, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure they bagged a
I
future
know
first.
he's sitting here. Yeah. I like Brandon Clark. I'm excited to see another year into him. So
Oh, yeah, forget about that bloke.
yeah, I reckon they're going to be pretty bloody good, to be honest. Just they lack a little bit in the front court, but we'll see if Ja Morant can make up for that, I guess.
Yeah, if you're looking at, I guess, New Orleans, Dallas, Memphis, you're like, righto, who's got the best player out of those three? It's probably Luka. But then I think Jar's probably the clear number 2 just because Zion's so unseen.
Yep.
So, you have that type of superstar. He's quickly becoming one of, if not the most popular players in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the way that he produces viral highlights. So, that raucous Memphis arena goes off 41 times a year. That could get him a couple extra wins. And like I said, if Jaren Jackson Jr. is healthy, they go a lineup of Jar, Bain, Dylan Brooks, Triple J, and Steven Adams to start. That's pretty fucking good.
Bloody good. Yeah. And then they've got Brandon Clark coming off the bench. They've got Danny Green shooting off the bench. That's pretty good. And they've obviously got Tyus Jones, spelling Jar. So it's good. John Concha, he's there. He's a man. He's a person. So good on you, John.
Before we get off basketball, try and tell me who's going to finish higher, Dallas, Memphis, or New Orleans.
I'll take Memphis.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because their team sort of play style that, fits and meshes and works together. Yeah. The rest are a little bit unknown.
By a hair, I'll agree with you. But I got New Orleans second out of the bunch.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. This is turning into a boring podcast. There's a lot of agreeing going on here.
Yeah, sorry, man. It's a boring fucking division, let's be honest.
Yeah, it is. And the last division. So, I think we've got a couple of weeks now before training camp kicks off. So we might just have to go through and, talk about our favorite players and their Instagram accounts.
Jokic doesn't fucking have one. Fuck.
You've been tuning into any of the Eurobasket shit?
Only catching what Jokic is doing, honestly.
Yeah.
And he's doing well.
Yeah, it seems like the stars over there are putting up big numbers, but there's some crazy stuff going on. I can't remember exactly who it was. I think it was Furkan Korkmaz. Someone was attacked after one of the games by players from the other team and police and shit. So and then there was one of the results of the game was protested. They were claiming that clock ran while there was a scuffle on the court. Then there was another one about tech fouls being awarded when it was carnage. So I'm going to make sure that I start to follow a little bit when it gets to the pointy end because we could just see some whack shit unfold.
European sport, man. It's different beast.
They are different characters, though. Yeah, they're the reason that the word fanatics exists. All right. Footy time. How good are the fucking Fremantle Dockers? Let's go.
Wow. They were good for half a game. That's for sure. They were abysmal for 1 3/4 quarters.
Yeah,
they were
did not get their hands on the footy, eh?
Literally, might have been the worst footy I've seen in the AFL. And that's a big statement, but it was so bad. And full credit to them. they turned it around and reeled it back. And I think we were texting during the game and sort of saying, I think the doggies threw everything they had in that
Early.
first quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then ran out of juice. But man, Freo was so bad at the start. But they won, which is the main thing. Let's hope they don't do that against Collingwood. And let's hope it's not a close game against Collingwood, because that's a recipe for disaster against the Pies, in my
Yeah, I tend
opinion.
to
But
agree.
I think you've got the cattle to do it. That's my personal opinion.
Tell you what, before we dive into week 2, because I got some opinions and I want to dissect both semi-final matchups, let's look back at week 1. So I don't know about you, but I didn't get to watch a shitload of these games. I was bouncing all over the Southwest over the weekend and the Thursday, Friday period. So I want you to think about which game you learnt the most from, or which team you reckon you learnt the most from, because obviously Sydney beating Melbourne is big for their chances, now getting a home prelim. Collingwood, I thought Collingwood were honestly going to beat Geelong. That's where the Sports by Fry bankroll was dedicated to. I actually had money on the doggies as well. I was very pessimist as a Freo fan for something different. And I thought Richmond was going to win, but obviously they, in a pretty epic battle, just fell short. So which team do you think, obviously there's 6 left now, what do you think you learnt the most of in those 4 contests?
Boy,
It's a
it's a
tough
good
question, but
yeah, probably have to go with Sydney. And that they can game plan for any team, and they game planned for Melbourne really well. Just like we were saying that they did against the Pies a few weeks before the final started. They did the exact same thing against Melbourne and just, got rid of Melbourne's strengths and played to their own strengths and figured out ways to sort of transition from those 2 areas, I guess. So I think Sydney, I'm still not a believer in them winning it all, but they were bloody impressive. And to be honest, it was probably the worst game of the round, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a blowout if you take the others into consideration. Was it 19 points or something?
Definitely. I could maybe give a little shout to the Pies for hanging right in there with Geelong, but I would say Sydney, personally.
I think we learnt, I mean, if I'm looking at the 6 remaining teams, I agree. I think it's Sydney. But if I'm looking at the 8 teams that took to the field, I think we learnt the most about the Dogs, because they should have fucking killed Fremantle. And
it was embarrassing for them.
There was all sorts of numbers and stats rolling around. Like I think they said in 2 second halves at Optus, they've conceded 27 of 30 goals or something ridiculous.
Wow.
And one of them was a grand final against a Melbourne team that was driven and couldn't be stopped by the time they started clicking. And I think Fremantle got a huge boost out of playing at Optus Stadium. Like if that final was in Marvel, it probably would have been a 30, 40 point Dogs win. But, this is the 3rd time in 4 years, or maybe worse, that they've now bowed out in an elimination final. And their team's pretty fucking good. They shouldn't be losing at this point of the year, if you ask me. They always seem to get into your 7, 8 range. I'm like, you look at that team on paper and the midfield talent they've got. Granted, we've talked about their backline woes, but they should probably be pushing for top 4 every year. So I do wonder, I don't think getting rid of Bevo or dramatically changing things is probably the right call, but if it happens again, it might be time, honestly.
I think Beveridge should go, personally.
I guess the thing is, right, who would you replace him with?
If they'd fucking gone I was going to say gone early enough, they could have got Clarkson. Doesn't matter. Steve Kerr was an unproven coach when he inherited the Golden State Warriors. And you just got to pick the right man, you could just grab Choco Williams for 2 years, see what happens, and then have a transition plan to Bob Murphy, who's sitting on the Freo sidelines, something like that. I reckon it's Bevo's got to go, and he's a problem, man. He's got all these weird vendettas against fucking Damien Barrett, and
he does love.
You don't need that hanging around your club. That's actually shit house. So, I reckon look, and now I hope I don't ever meet Bevo because he'll fucking go me. But I think that's probably what the doggies brass should be genuinely looking at. It's not the players. Well, I mean, the players might be part of the problem, but it starts somewhere, and I think it starts with the coach, who's obviously doesn't have the game plan that's necessary because he's got the cattle. He's got about
Yeah,
as good a
absolutely.
list as anyone in the league, really. So this was a huge underperformance by them this year, and there's a lot of worrying signs, that strikes me as the thing that I'd be doing. I'm not like a big coach sacker, but I think I called for it halfway through the year. Honestly, I reckon he's probably got to go.
Yeah, I put money on them to win the flag. That was my
Yeah,
preseason prediction. And yeah, they disappointed at almost every changeover. I think looks like Josh Dunkley's going to bounce to Port Adelaide as well. So, he's
it's their second best
maybe their
player
best. Yeah, behind Baz.
behind Bond.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry, forgot about Bond.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you lose him, and it's not like they haven't tempted him to stay previously. He was going to go to Essendon. They're like, no, like we can build a winner here. But yeah, they just keep stumbling. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't address it soon. And they're like, no, we trust Beveridge. We're going to stick fat. More blokes might leave.
yeah. No, I think it's worrying signs for the doggies, but it's all the better for Freo. Thank goodness that happened. Thank God you guys had the doggies and not any other team. If
Richmond or
you'd
Brisbane.
Richmond,
Yeah.
you'd have been fucked. Yeah,
Yeah.
for real.
Thank God. I am very glad that the Fremantle Dockers did clash with said Western Bulldogs. Richmond, good to see that Koch and Rewalt are going to go round one last time. You'd think that even if the recent player rumours are true and they nab Hopper and they nab Terrance, this is like probably their last hurrah in this current iteration of Richmond for a flag, you reckon? I think we've said that the last 3 years in a row, but do you reckon they can retool around those boys and still be all right, even if Cochin and Rewalt bounce?
Oh, with one more. Yeah, look, it depends how you sort of rank it. Like I think they're just going to stay in contention for the next few years. We all know how I feel about Shea Bolton. If they get Taranto, he's a star. They've got the best forward in the game, I think, in Tom Lynch. Don't know about their back line, but Gibcus has looked all right. They were better than the Lions, I think,
Yeah.
and they probably should have won. If we're being honest, if we look at sort of that weird call by the Arc, but yeah, I think they'll just keep winning. So we're going to sort of have a Geelong situation where where does one error finish and the next start? But yeah, that might have been like the best game of footy I've ever seen, if I'm being honest. Like that, and I was texting you the whole time. Literally, like every minute, every 90 seconds, there was a goal scored. That was a true old school shootout. And mate, it was just free flowing footy. They just went non-stop. They must have been fucking buggered at the end of that game, every single player. But yeah, I think Richmond are fine. I absolutely love what Maurice Rioli Jr. brings. Like I think I've said it to you in person when we've been watching the games. He puts pressure on like no player I maybe have ever seen. The intensity he brings at the football across the ground, obviously mostly up forward, he is phenomenal. So between him and Shea Bolton and the Liam Bakers of the world, I think they'll just keep going, keep rolling. And if they can attract these stars, like they will, they're Richmond. They're one of the biggest clubs in the land. They're just going to keep on keeping on. So it was a shame. I would have liked to see them get up over Brisbane because I think could have made more of a splash than the Lions will. But cracking game of footy, and we get to see what Lachie Neale can do against the other team. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree pretty much with everything you said. And I'm a bit bummed also that Brisbane won, because how good would Friday night at the GB between Richmond and Melbourne? I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Whoever wins that game may go on to win the flag, because Melbourne will probably beat Brisbane. I think that's fair to say. They're 20-point favourites. So I'm like, I kind of think, because like you said, Brisbane will probably be cooked after that huge game. But,
Yeah.
the stranger things have happened and they do still stand a
Mm,
chance. But yeah, I'm picking the
mm.
D's. And imagine the D's win that. D's versus Geelong, they're probably going to play that at Melbourne. So
Good
there's
game.
no Cardinia Park bonus for Geelong.
No.
And,
Yeah.
they still play in Melbourne. So it's not exactly a away game. But I'd probably pick Melbourne for that. And then reigning premiers on grand final day at the G, I think could go all the way. But yeah, back to the semi final at hand. Out of 10, what do you reckon the chances is of Brisbane pulling off an upset? Let's call it.
If Petrarca's no go, then
Yeah, was
sure.
it fractured fibula? Is that right?
Yeah, and to be honest, mate, I think even if I was lining up for a potential back-to-back prem, I would be telling people, I've got a broken fucking leg. I'm not
Yeah,
playing. I'm sorry. Like, if you get a knock on that, that's which you're almost certain to do as a midfielder in the AFL. You're going to get
just an
knocked in the shin.
innocuous one on your shin or something.
Oh my goodness. I would be saying, sorry, guys. Like, I value my leg. I don't want one of those one short legs or some shit. Like, he's got a lot of footy left. I would be telling him, sorry, I'm packing it in for the season, mate. But I guess if he doesn't go, Brizzy could get up. I feel like they've probably got, I mean, Harmsy should get the job on Lockie Neal, who was phenomenal
Yeah,
against Richmond. But yeah, I wouldn't rate the Lions have a chance. Don't get me wrong, but I would be picking Melbourne too. Probably not by 20 points though. I reckon it'll be a close game.
yeah, okay. I think
No,
I'll take
McInerney. That hurts.
that is a big out, especially with the Twin Towers that Melbourne are rocking for
Mm.
the rest of this season. Anyway, I do wonder just exactly how Lockie Neal will go if they put a lot of time and effort and energy into shutting him down, which has surprised me that Richmond didn't, to be honest. I mean, I know they don't
Richmond never
traditionally
does.
tag, but
No.
yeah, I'm like, this bloke's about to have the finals record for disposals here. And every time, same deal. Like I said, I didn't watch much of the footy, but every little glance I got on the KO app briefly between doing bits and pieces, I was like, oh yeah, there's Lockie Neal around the footy, tackling or getting a clearance or positively impacting the play somehow. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Melbourne had a like full on tilt approach to shut him down.
Oh, they
The
have to.
Collingwood Fremantle game intrigues me, and I want to hear
Yep.
your thoughts before I give my prediction.
Okay.
I think it being played at the G is obviously a big factor for Collingwood, but yeah, where do you sit?
Oh, I don't think. I think Freo can win anywhere. Luckily, they've built that side. They're based on defense, and I
Yep.
think they're going to match up with Collingwood's play on at all costs style very well. I think they've got the midfield to outdo the Collingwood midfield, and I think their forward pressure is good enough to give the Izzy Quainers and Nick Dacosses and the fucking whoever else they've got back there is of the world enough trouble that they're not going to have the time to operate the way they would like to. So I reckon I'll be tipping Frio at the G, and I think it might be like I think Frio could win this by 40 points, if I'm being honest.
Jesus. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't think Collingwood's game plan is going to match up very well against the Dockers, whereas it does against the D's and the other teams of the world. The Dockers' defense and their structure and their game plan is not good for Collingwood. I reckon Collingwood would have been desperately hoping that the Doggies got up over Freo. Obviously not hoping to lose, but I reckon Freo's definitely got it in the tank and got the cattle to go with Collingwood pretty comprehensively. Obviously, I'm sort of saying 40 points, but yeah, that would be my summary.
I think that the MCG factor is a factor. Like there's going to be 90,000 fans there, and there's probably going to be 75 plus cheering for Collingwood. But if they can get a bit of a run on early, I kind of agree. I feel like their defense can shut Collingwood down, but they've got to be switched on for all four quarters because you've seen what happens if you give Collingwood a little bit of a sniff or you have a bit of a lapse. So Initially, I said that Fremantle would lose in a close one, rolling into the recording of this podcast. But the more I kind of thinking about it, if they play their cards right, I think they can win, and I think they should win. Collingwood's probably the favourites because it's technically their home game and it's fourth versus fifth, but it's fourth versus fifth as well. It's not like it's second versus seventh, right? And
yeah.
these two teams played a couple of times throughout the year. I think they beat us to start their win streak initially, back in like round 6 or 7 or something. But I also think that Fremantle's group will get a shitload of confidence out of winning last week and the way that they won as well. Like, fuck, we were 7 goals down, dead in the water, and they came all the way back on the back of their defensive pressure, like you said. So I'm going to tip Freo. If you want some free money, though, I reckon you bet the under because it's like 154 points, which means both teams kick around 75. Or 78. I'm like, there's no way that's happening. I reckon it'll be like a 50-something to 60-something type of scoreline, honestly. I reckon it'll be a bit of a slog. Fremantle might only kick 8 goals for the game, but as long as Collingwood doesn't kick 9, I think they'll win. So it'll be tight. It'll be tight.
Yeah. I sort of see what you're saying. I still think, will Fife be back?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
I'll be honest, I kind of forgot that he didn't play.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I just think Freo's midfield, including their wings, is too much. Switkowski's, I know, gets a lot of flack for being an elite rated player. He had the most pressure acts in the game last week, and that's over the top of Dunkley, who had 10 plus tackles. Switkowski only had fucking 16 touches or less. He adds so much. Blakey Acres is unreal. Obviously, we know what the Freo Dockers midfield can do. I think Sean Darcy is clearly better than Darcy Cameron. I think the Dockers will do it easy. I know I've said it. So there's my big call for the week, maybe, or some shit.
There's not much. I'm having a look at the in the mix article. There's no mention of Fifey. So I do wonder if after he had that setback, because again, last week I was kind of oblivious to a lot of headlines. I do wonder if that was he's out for the finals type of deal. But
okay, that'd be shame.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm nervous because I feel like it's a game that Fremantle should win, much like this Bulldogs one. And if they play their cards right, they can. But I don't really know what to expect. It could be a 40-point Dockers win. It could be a 40-point loss. No result would surprise me, knowing Fremantle. Actually, a 40-point win would surprise me.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think they would do it.
Transitioning from one West Australian team to another, obviously West Coast's in the swing of their off-season. Junior Rioli wants out now as well. So getting to the point where all the 10 or bottom 10 teams are starting to look through a bit of list management and shit like that. If you have to give up Junior, not Wheelie Rioli at the moment, what do you want in return? What do you think is fair compensation?
I think they could definitely angle for, it is West Coast front office. They're pretty good.
No, pretty good.
They could push for Port Adelaide's top pick because they already have the second round pick. So you're kind of like, well, we don't want that. That's not, you can't give us a second rounder, which would be the obvious option, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of feel like because he's contracted, right?
Nah, he's out of contract.
Oh, I thought he still had 1 year to run.
Not from what I'm looking at.
I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, I thought I read that he was contracted. So he's not a free agent. So they would have to make a trade go through. So if that's the case, I reckon we could argue for the top pick. To be honest, though, I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides. West Coast, I would love to keep Junior, especially after the kind of the weird 3-4 years that it's been.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it probably makes a bit of sense for West Coast to get some draft capital or a young player who doesn't quite fit in their side, or if they've got a West Aussie over there or something. So maybe angling for that and a couple of late, a third and a fourth, or I don't know. I don't really understand how the points work, but
now that, like you said, Port Adelaide's future second is tied to West Coast, that does complicate some stuff. This time last year, you could have said that give us Sampao Pepper. That would have been a solid potential trade. But obviously, he kind of peaked a bit in the back 6
good
weeks.
year.
So I do wonder if that would be a straight swap that works. He is out of contract in 2022 for what it's worth, Junior Rioli. Okay. But you could potentially, there's a lot of people who've said, give us Mitch Georgiadis. And I'm like, Port Adelaide's not giving up Mitch Georgiadis, especially unless West Coast are willing to attach other things to that deal. But there's one move that I do like. It's a straight swap, player for player. They get Junior. You guys get Xavier Dersma, who had his injury issues. He's had a couple of yo-yo years. He hasn't really peaked at Port Adelaide. He provides you guys with something that for years you've said that West Coast desperately need, and a bit of leg speed. You put him on a wing, and I feel like that's fair compo and a fair type of deal. What do you reckon?
I don't mind that. I would love to get Sam Powell Pepper.
That would be nice.
Maybe that's not an option. Yeah, I'd give Dersma a crack. That'd be okay.
Still young.
I would still like a draft pick attach or something, but yeah, I'll take it. Oh yeah, okay. He might be out of contract, but he's not a free agent. I don't know how that works.
I don't know.
I'm just reading off AFL, so it'd have to organise a trade. They're saying on AFL.
Yeah, righto. Well, yeah,
but anyway,
he's not going to walk for nothing, and then you guys get compensation. So, I think let's go through the out of contract West Coasters because there's not shitloads of them. You got your Aaron Black, Angus Dewar, Declan Mountford. I'm trying to find them all at once. Jake Florenka, Luke Stranatica, Sam Fisher, who I don't even know who the hell that is, Stefan Giro, Tom Joyce. They're all probably gone, right? Most of them are your top-up boys. All of them are out of contract. Any of them that tantalizes you?
No. There's a few players I would, if I could have Florenka, I'd take him. He was pretty good.
Give him a lifeline.
Yeah. Maybe.
Because looking through this list, there's actually, there's quite a few dudes here. And I'm like, oh, West Coast probably want to hold on to them. Starting with Alex Witherden.
Obviously hold. Just traded for him.
Bailey Williams.
There's a lot of talk that he's under pressure. I don't feel like he's under pressure. He had some good games when Nick Nat wasn't there. He's still got a lot of growth.
Fine.
You've got to be patient with Ruckman. So I would like to keep him because he's an athlete. He's
only 22.
Got the body. Yeah, no, I rate him. So I wouldn't want to get rid of him, but maybe they will. West Coast do weird stuff sometimes.
Maybe. Braden Ainsworth, I think it's fair to say he can go.
Yep. See you later.
Connor West.
I liked him this year. I thought he offered a fair bit of intent that most of the other West Coast players didn't. So he needs to clean up his disposal, but yeah, I'd keep him.
I reckon he deserves another rookie list spot at worst. Yeah. Huge Dixon.
He was pretty average.
He was pretty average.
Yeah, I could let him go.
Yep.
Honestly.
Good. Isaiah Winder.
Oh, I didn't mind him. He's quite young too, isn't he?
Yep. Hasn't done much, but hasn't had a lot of opportunity either.
I'd keep him around.
Yep. Can't hurt. He was a late pick in 2020, so where are we going after that? Jack Redden.
He had a great year.
Yep.
You've got to keep him.
Obviously keep him. Jacko Nelson.
Yep. I could let him go very easily. Do not rate at all.
He is an unrestricted free agent as well, apparently. So you may get compo. I don't really know how that'll work. It's very confusing. But yeah, I can't stand Jacko Nelson. So I'll happily let him leave the state. Jai Cully, obviously they're going to keep him. Josh Kennedy, retired. Logan Young, skipped over him. Don't even know who that is. Luke Edwards.
No. Luke Edwards, not Harry. Luke.
No. Tyson Edwards' son, number 16 from memory, plays in midfield, hasn't played much.
He had a good year last year, so you'd keep him around.
I think so.
Keep the youth.
Stranatica, he probably goes though.
See you later.
Nick Nat has recently agreed to a 2-year extension, I think, so his name could go off this list. Paddy Naish.
Oh, he was bad. He got a lot of the footy early in the year, but he was really useless with the footy. I would say he goes
I
personally.
agree. And I mean, he's struggled to chop it up in the waffle, which tells you, I think, all you need to know.
Yeah.
Shannon Hearn.
He signed on, didn't he?
Yeah, probably. One last
Yep.
bugger run. And then the last one on the
Yep.
list we haven't mentioned is Zane True, who made his debut late in the year, similar to Jai Cully. I think he was a first rounder from not too long ago.
Yeah,
Or
you
maybe
keep
not
him around.
first.
Keep the youth around.
Oh, he's a
That's what
rookie
West
pick.
Coast
Rookie pick.
obviously has to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, there's what? I probably ran through 20-ish names, 25 names there. And
Yeah.
I reckon there's nearly 10 of them who you'd want to keep. But some of them are your Nick Nats, your Reddens, your Hearns. So there's a lot of out of contract West Coasters, which tells me that if there's a lot of blokes leaving, then it's a good opportunity, not for a culture reset. That's not the right word, but you know, you can cut your dead weight.
Yeah.
I think that they're going to be a lot better next year than a lot of people think, especially if you get healthy and you don't have as many COVID issues.
Hope so.
Last Coasters note, random thought, and for the record, I did have this thought before Will Schofield mentioned it on the Backchat podcast. I wrote this down on Monday. Should Govsy
Okay.
be used as a forward?
Nah, I don't reckon.
All right, good. All right, so let's transition.
He's a
No, but we
fucking
obviously watched
four-time.
him play a bit as a junior. He's a bit of a beefcake, can clunk a mark. You've got potentially Oscar Allen coming back into that forward line, which will help. Jack Darling's going to be there as another target. But Tommy Barras really did thrive without Govs there. But I don't, obviously, you put Govsy in that back line. It doesn't mean that he's going to not dominate his opposition. It just means
Yeah.
he'll have less responsibility. So, yeah, it's just something I thought of. I was like, you know, this could be a bit of a trump card. You got the likes of Joshy Rotham, Harry Edwards, who you mentioned, a couple of other cats coming through the ranks. Maybe it's a year or two too early, and maybe he could just do it, you know, Adam Hunter style if he needs to midway
Well,
through a
yeah,
game.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. But yeah, just something I was thinking.
Yeah. I still don't think he's past his All Australian phase. I think he's still good enough to get another jacket. So
Yeah. Well, he was the fastest bloke to get 4 jackets, wasn't he? Ever?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That sounds right.
you probably back him in. He's 30, so he's got a bit left.
He just oozes of a bloke who's going to come back to probably North Albany and just sit in the cage and just kick bags for fun.
He's going to dominate. Yeah.
You send him to any country footy league and he's just going to be decking blokes, kicking 7 and chewing through about 6-1 drafts when he's done.
Fucking oath, mate.
Yeah. All right. It has been a long time since we've sat down for a Mt Rushmore, but it is time for the Sportsby faithful to get excited. They've sat through
Here we go.
a lengthy chat to get to the best part of the podcast. The last one we did was NBA MVP candidates. I can't remember the exact final total, but you got the 6th win of your career. You pipped me at the post.
I should.
Which means, yeah, you should have.
I had Giannis.
Like I said, every time I do these drafts, I get to the end of it, and I'm like, yeah, I've lost that one. Yep.
Yeah.
Like I know when I've lost.
You have to comprehensively lose.
Yeah.
For me to win. If it's a close one, you get it.
Hey, it is the Sports by Fry podcast, so
and you know what? I'm okay with it. It's all right.
All right. This draft topic brought to you by JLo, we'll admit, because I had a couple in the chamber. I was going to look at doing the greatest tennis players of the 21st century after Serena retired, but you smartly made the call of, mate, we don't know fuck all about tennis. That's not a good idea.
No one's listening to this for the tennis, mate.
Nah. We may pivot and do some other off-brand topics, but we probably won't go through the highlights on the tennis courts. But today we will draft the best AFL villains of all time. Now, this is a tricky one because, you know, there's different definitions for a villain. Is it a bloke who is a bit of a pest, but, you know, you love him if he's on your team? Was he a thug? Was he just viewed as a legend on the field, but a pisshead off of it? So there's a lot of different ways you can go with this one. But I think when I think of AFL villains, there's a few that spring to mind. And I tweaked my list 10 minutes out of the pod and moved this other bloke I'm about to draft to the top. Maybe wrong, maybe right. But I think Barry Hall needs to be the number one pick as an AFL villain.
That is a beauty. Just didn't even think of Baz. Shit, that's really good. That's really, really good.
His hit
Well
on
done.
Staker might be like the
Yeah.
most iconic play of his career. And he kicked, 700 goals?
He's a piece of shit
He's a
on the
thug.
field.
Were you with me when we saw him get kicked out of Hippie Club?
No, I don't think I was there.
Yeah,
Not a hippie club regular.
Yeah, I think it was Boule. But yeah, you know that little side door you kind of go out of? Yeah, he was just
Yeah.
politely dragged. It was like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night as well. We're like, what are you doing, mate? Anyway, yeah, Barry Hall,
look,
first overall.
good player. Probably actually a decent bloke, but
Probably.
on the footy field, just an actual shit human being.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a good pick, man. That's a really good pick. Well, all right. Well, I'm going to go with my the first bloke who jumped to my mind. Villain, great player. Very similar, even sort of a similar player to Barry Hall. Villain for a very different reason. And I'm going to pick up, I've picked him a few times in my list. I'm picking up Wayne the King Carey.
Yeah, okay.
Because, Barry Hall might have been a dog on the field, but Wayne Carey pulled one of the biggest dog moves of his in history. In the history of football, it was such a huge story.
Yeah.
He broke North Melbourne. He
did. A dominant
They
North
haven't
Melbourne
been the
too.
same. Yeah. So I'll pick Duck because he's pulled some real scumbag shit out through his life. So I don't think I can compete with the Barry Hall, but I'll take Duck.
You can't go too many years without some form of Wayne Carey controversy, right? Even this week. Yeah, Wayne Carey's been banned from casinos after spilling a bag of white powder on the casino table. And he's like, oh, no, it was crushed up anti-inflammatory. So, yeah, righto, Duck. Of course it was.
Duck. Quack somewhere else, you can't. Yeah.
POS.
And he's just also a useless commentator.
Yeah, it does not provide shitloads. I mean,
no,
I'm not going to go in to defend Wayne Carey. All right. I'm going to be brief. Another bloke that kicked a lot of goals.
Ooh.
Another bloke who I don't know if I'd want to sit down and have a beer with.
God, no.
He wouldn't intimidate me as much. But Stephen Milne probably falls more into the bracket of pest rather than villain. But
yeah,
bloke who's been falsely or accurately accused of rape and just was an absolute, you hated playing against Stephen Milne. You're like, this little fucking weasel, this dog. Yeah. He wasn't a fan favourite. St Kilda's faithful loved him, whether they wanted to admit it out loud or not. He was a great footballer, but yeah, I'm gonna take Stephen Milne with my second pick. And actually, when I said villain, I don't know why, but he was the first bloke that I thought of.
Oh wow, yeah. Look, that's a bloody good call. And he was the second bloke I thought of after Duck.
Okay.
So well done, well picked. He probably would have been my second pick, especially since I forgot back Big Bad Barry. I'm gonna follow right up and pick another pest. He was honestly probably peskier than Stephen Milne. Didn't rip your heart out and kick 8 goals and be an absolute prick to the crowd. But Hayden Ballantyne was about as annoying a footballer as I've ever. In fact, he was the most annoying bloke on a field that I've ever seen. Obviously, being a West Coast fan, just got up in our grills that often, and he was just, That's all I need to say about Ballantyne.
You're like, how many times can I just be like, yeah, this bloke's a fuckhead, eh? How many other ways can I articulate that?
Yeah, he's a fuckhead.
Yeah, well, Ballas was third on my draft board and was going to be my next pick, so I cannot blame you. It would have pained me to draft him, so thanks for taking that off my hands.
No worries.
I think the only active bloke I've got on my board, I'm going to pick next. And you know what? Like, once again, elite footballer, but there's not a lot of people out there who are off-field enthusiasts of the way Toby Green goes about his business. The whole sticking his foot up and kicking blokes early in his career. I'm like, what are you doing, mate? Like, you would have by that point played enough football to know that that's not kosher. Like, pull your head in, but then just always, trying to get under blokes' skins, bumping that umpire last year. That was only last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you trying to achieve here? And whether you did actually physically make contact with him or not, you're just steamrolling an umpire at one of the quarter breaks. So, yeah, do rate the fella. But Toby Green, I would probably not want to have a beer with you, mate.
I think he's probably, like you said, great footballer, probably goes about his footy in the bigger shithead way. Like Barry
Yeah.
Hall was a thug. Toby Green is like a dirty, horrible player. Plus, I've also got a personal bone to pick with Toby Green. So fuck
He
him.
looks like he's got a very punchable face as well.
Oh yeah, I'd punch it if I had the chance.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Toby Green.
Eat a
All
dick.
right. Well, yeah, they're probably the clear top 5. So it gets a bit trickier now.
It does. Yeah, it's dicey.
Definitely gets trickier. I'm going to save my little sneaky trump card for later. So with that in mind, I think, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, God. It's really hard now. All right. I'm going to go with my gut. And he's a bit of a lovable villain.
They all are,
You know, he's
in
like,
some way.
this bloke's an anti-hero, if you ask me. And I think he kind of got better in the back end of his career. But absolute weapon, just a fucking, you so often see him fucking giving you a spray and just talking shit, and
Yeah,
he's bloody good as well, which was so frustrating.
makes it worse.
I'm going to go with Heater McShaw
Oh,
from
yeah, okay.
Collingwood Magpie. You know, he sort of riled those fucking feral fans up.
That's a good one.
No, sorry, that's harsh on the Collingwood faithful, but you know, he would roll those blokes up, especially because he's usually at one end of the ground. So he's going to get the Collingwood cheer squad going, get Joffa going. So yeah, Heater Shaw, bit of a villain on the field, but also kind of got up to some shit off the field. You've heard some
Questionable
crazy
character.
stories. So yeah, I'll go Heater Shaw. But you know, that said, he's pretty funny and did come kind of good in the back end of his career. Still a cunt.
I am now really torn because I've got a couple in the chamber,
Okay.
but I've been sitting on this one the whole draft. And I don't know if he qualifies, but hang on, let me have a think. Nah, you know what? I think he does. I mean,
Okay.
he brought the game into disrepute.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, fair enough.
He is still the Prince of Perth. But I think I'm going to take Ben Cousins with my last pick. Because
Yeah, had
once
that
he
thing
kind of
with
went off the
Curry at the
rails.
nightclub.
Yeah, and then when he
Yeah.
started coming back with Richmond and did Cousins back in Perth playing for Richmond against Freo, and he just douches straight down the camera. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, thanks, Ben. What the fuck's that for?
Shaved his hair so he wouldn't get tested. And
Yeah, like there's a couple of other characters who I'm looking at, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just going to go Benny Cousins. And again, an elite footballer, but
yeah,
did some shit. So sorry, Ben. It's a bit reluctant, but yeah, he's my final pick.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah, there's no clear pick here. Ryan Crowley.
He was who I was going to pick.
I thought that's who you might, and it's who I might steal.
Do you want me to
I'm not gonna.
list off my other honourable mentions?
Yeah, go on.
So I had Didac sitting here, very similar in the Heath Shaw mould. Daisy Thomas, there can't be many blokes that deflected from Collingwood to Carlton, but, you know, that's probably the only bad thing he did. Ryan Griffin for leaving when he was the Dogs' captain to go join GWS.
What a scumbag move.
Dean Solomon was more of like a thug than a villain, like a physical cat.
Yeah.
Crowley. Campbell Brown got a bit of a mention, but not really. And Steve Baker was the only other one I could think of.
Yeah, nah, man, he had some crazy duels. I forget who it was with. Like, they both got reported 3 times, and Baker ended up getting like 10 weeks or something for like
It wasn't
3
like,
separate incidents.
yeah, it wasn't. I feel like it was against like Brisbane's elite midfield for whatever.
Anyway, who knows? It could have been someone. All right, I think I'm going to throw it back. And it kind of pairs nicely with your Ben Cousins pick.
Oh,
I'm going to pick Tony Liberatore.
oh, that's a
because
great pick.
he doesn't appear on any of these lists you see. And Crowley was, he's a bit of a prick, but he's actually kind of good at what he did. But I reckon Tony Liberatore did some dirty, horrible stuff and would make people cry and, do the things that you hate. In fact, I don't think I've ever had it happen because it's gone out of the game, but like stepping on your opponent's toes and like pinching them and weird shit like that. So Tony Liberatore, I remember when Ben Cousins was really young, he just went after him and never looked at him the same. And I don't look at Tom the same either because of that. So when you've carried through a generation and tainted your son's legacy, I think that's some real villain talk. So I'll take little Chopper Liberatore as in your last pick. I wish I got Toby Green. I think that could have turned the list if you'd let him slide, but I reckon well done on that one. Toby Green, getting Barry Hall number 1. That's a smoker. That's a real good list by you.
I was thinking that I could get him 3 or 4, but I'm like, no. Like when you think of who is the biggest thug and the villain, it's probably Baz. So
bloody oath. Yeah.
I just stuck to me guns.
Yeah, it's a fun one. That's a cool one.
Another good one.
Enjoyed that. It's not quite the Kobe highlights, but that was a good list. Well done, mate.
Yeah, I don't reckon it's too long before we reel out the all-time AFL highlights. We might have to do it grand final week or something, to be honest, because it'll be about, what are we, semi-final? Yeah, there we go. Next footy one, we might do best AFL highlights full time.
I reckon next one we'll be rolling into the grand final, won't we?
Yeah, we will.
I reckon we could go greatest grand final moments. That'd be a good one.
That's also a pretty good one. Yeah, no.
We'll probably.
I mean, there's one famous kick that's probably number 1 on both those lists.
Maybe there's some fucking good grand final moments though.
Yeah, true.
So, I can think of it. Moments / highlights. I can think of some smokers. So anyway, that'd be a good one. Also, maybe something around the Brownlow because we'll just be coming off it. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Worst Brownlow medalists would be a good one.
I was going to say, we've done, I think, best blokes to not win one. So, yeah, we might have to go with the shittest blokes to win one.
Yeah.
Shout out
where Adam Cooney finishes on that.
Hey, before we do that, we've got a podcast to edit. We've got a semi-final for the Dockers to win. But most importantly, we've got a Sharks grand final to take care of. So, who knows if we get up, this next one might be a solo one. You might be still in Sydney next week, eh?
Adelaide, yeah. I might actually miss next week. We'll see.
We'll figure it out. Hey, just because we've done all of them on Wednesday doesn't mean we can't pivot as well. We're all about pivoting.
Yeah, I love a good pivot.
Fry Pod.
Bloody oath.
All right. Thanks once again, JLo. Another Ripper podcast. I'll see you in a couple of days.
All right. See you tomorrow.